Hi everyone, welcome to another video. In this video we're going to take a look at how I made my tip over jig. So it's a wooden structure that bolts onto the chassis once it's installed into the body, and that I can use this to flip over the entire car on its side, and that way I have access to a lot of things that I otherwise wouldn't have access to or would be much more difficult. Now you can see that it works at the moment, but it was a little bit of trial and error, so I'll show you some clips on my first attempts, and they didn't go as well. But now that it works, I'm going to take you all around it to show you how the structure looks like and what it's used for, and some of the advantages for the tip over jig. So there are things that we can reach much more easily now that we can put the car on its side. I've made a rollover jig for the chassis and the body. That way I can repair the underside. It's made out of wood. Not quite sure if it will work because the body and the chassis is quite heavy and the wood is even heavier. So I'm trying to roll it onto its side. I'm not quite sure if it's going to work. Worst case scenario, I get it on its side and the wood supports break and the body crashes down, and if that's the case I do have to do a lot of repairs. What we're going to try. That hasn't worked. Thank God, fiberglass is actually pretty flexible. The roof was completely caved in, however I didn't think anything broke. So yeah, there's a little crack here. So the supports aren't strong enough. Well, the supports are strong, they're not long enough. The body rolls over the end of the support. Shit! There are a couple of solutions to this problem. Either make these longer. In that case I need to get some more wood, but it will also make that I can't get to the body as easily. Make this a bit higher, or I just need to make some sort of support that will support the body without it completely rolling over. So that was worst case scenario. Fortunately I have video of it. Yeah. So these are the modifications to the tip over jig after our last disaster. The stays on the side are a lot higher. They're also 90 degrees, so they're not tipping back in. I've also added wheels. The back wheels work okay. The fronts need to go a little bit higher because I'm bottoming out when I'm coming out of the garage. So I'm going to jig up a little bit and reattach the wheels so that they're a bit a bit lower on the tip over jig, so we have a little bit more ground clearance. And then we're going to try to tip the car over again, hopefully with a little bit better results than yesterday. So I've raised the front wheels up about 15 millimeters, so now we're not bottoming out. Now, making a tip over jig like this is something you wouldn't have to do on Series 2 Europa or twin cam because the chassis is on the bottom. However, this car has a completely flat floor which has its own intricacies, and the cars have to be repaired from the bottom, and I'd like to paint mine on the bottom as well. So we have to have a method of actually getting to the other side of the car. So I'll reposition the car and we'll see if I can tip it on its side without it completely rolling over like we had yesterday. We're going to check that everything's empty inside, otherwise things are going to fall out, but we'll see how it goes. We need about 3.5 meters to completely flip it over. The jig is 2 meters wide and this is 1.5 meters high. About it. Success! So that's what I was trying to do yesterday. It's quite scary because once we're reaching the end, I can't stop it anymore because it's too heavy. So we just have to trust that it will work. So this is the underside of a Series 1 Europa. You can see a completely flat floor, and the chassis is in here. It's about 30 rivets that hold the chassis in from the underside. Of course now it isn't, but in the end it will have. Holes for the fuel tanks, engine, gearbox, suspension bits. You can see that we still have to repair quite a few things. So the front needs some repairing here as well. And then we have a hole in the seat bottom. And of course the repairs that we did from the inside. Now that my tip over jig actually works, we're going to take a look at why it's so handy to have this. And it has several advantages, but especially because this is a Series 1 Europa, it's a lot easier with a tip over jig or a rotisserie than if you don't have one. So I'll take a look around with you to show all the advantages. In the engine bay you can see here the two little red pegs, and those are two mounting holes for bolting the chassis to the body. And on the top side they are already installed, so two bolts that go into bobbins. So there's one here and one here, but on this side I have a little bit of an issue trying to mount it up. The holes misalign by about 1 millimeter, so I cannot install the bolt. So I'm trying to move the chassis a little bit to get the bolts aligned. Now that we have the chassis like this, we can actually step into the front windshield, and now we can take a look at the roof panel. So there's a little bit of damage here caused by my previous accident with the tape over jig. So there's a big crack running across here that I need to repair. Also, I have a lot of access to the underside of the dash, so now I can easily cut those two bolts to remove this old fuse box, which I will do. And also I can easily access all of the dashboard without going upside down. Furthermore, it's much easier to clean up this plenum area with the car on the side, so I have to still remove a little bit of paint here and do some small repairs. Likewise, on the front nose section I can reach this from aside, but now look how easy it is. So now I can easily reach the inside of the front without having to bend over completely. And now the nose section from underneath. So it needs some repairs, but fiberglassing upside down is really difficult. So doing the fiberglass with it standing up is a lot easier. And of course, some more repairs that we need to do to the bottom. So there's a hole here. You can also see all of the mounting holes. So these are all riveted to the chassis. So that's why it's a completely strong structure. The chassis is not bonded to the body, but it is mounted with maybe 20 rivets and a couple of bolts. Some more repairs that we need to do that we already did from the inside, so now we can do these from the bottom side. And of course it also needs to be painted on the underside, so we can paint this in the jig. It will dip actually quite easily. I can do this just by myself. I have this strap here because once it goes up, I really need to use all my weight to keep it down. Now it wants to go over. That's it. Getting it back down takes a little bit more work, but it will still work. So I'll need to pull it towards me. So it's really stable. I can hold it with one finger. It only gets heavy while it's almost down. So the tip over jig is a really nice solution. It's all bolted on the suspension pickup points. It only needs the chassis in the body, that's the only downside. But I can get to all of the angles if I need to.